session, I've done it right away. Thanks a lot for reminding me on that. Okay, when we are planning the scope management can come from in the project charter as well. Now, the project charter that we have, it has the information about it has the information of the statement of work, right? What is the work that we have to do? From there as well, we can get the information about what is the work that we have to do. Project management plan also talks in detail about a project management plan is the high level plan which contains all the subsidiary management plans. That is a scope management plan is a is one of the plan which makes project management plan. So these becomes my some of the inputs using which I can create the scope management plan. Then experts can tell me that what are the different ways with which I can create the plan, right? Experts can tell me that for this kind of a project, you need to speak to all the stakeholders, or for a different type of stakeholder, you don't need to refer to all the stakeholders. Just look at the previous documents and you would be able to gather the scope. So experts can give me the information. Now, the inputs that we have for the project management plan is the project management plan itself. Scope management plan, we have the project management plan, project charter, which contains the information about the high-level product features, which is coming from the statement of work. Enterprise environmental factors, where we need to find out what is the organizational culture, infrastructure, marketplace conditions, which impact my output of the scope management. Yes, go ahead.
Is the project charter after SOW or before SOW?
Project charter contains SOW.
Okay.
Right, so that means that SOW is predefined. It contains SOW, it contains the statement of work.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so these becomes the input. Now, as I said earlier, you don't need to remember the inputs, tools and techniques and the output. All that you need to remember is the flow of the project management, because from the exam perspective, you will be given the practical questions. Whenever you go ahead and create all these documents in your organizations, it's not that you are creating it from scratch. Organizations already have these documents available with them, already have these documents as process assets available with them. You are basically going in and refining those documents. You are modifying those documents to suit your current project need, right? So these are already available in the organization, and it's not that you would be, you would be creating it from scratch. Different type of inputs that we have listed on over here, it doesn't mean that these are the only inputs. This only means that these are the probable inputs which will help you create the scope management plan. There would be more, you might want to use more, or you might want to use slightly less, right? So that's why this is just an indicator. This is not how your project scope management plan is prepared. From tools and techniques perspective, we said that we have the expert judgment. Now, expert judgment is always going to be the common tool and technique for anything which we're going to speak from here on. Expert judgment, why? Because one thing you always remember, this is a project manager. This is what we say in the industry. Project manager is a jack of all, master of none. You're not supposed to be a master in the subject. If I'm a project manager of IT, I can do the project management of construction company as well, right? That's not a mandate that I need to be aware of that industry. I need to have done projects earlier in that industry. Not at all. You can do the projects in that industry unless you are very good in management. Unless you are very good in project management, you would be able to conduct the project over there in that kind of environment. Now, of course, if you're doing a project in any other environment which you're not well versed with, who will help you out get the details? It's your team experts. It's your experts of that industry who will get you the information about how do you do that particular task. You know what are the tasks that has to be completed. You know what are the activities that has to be completed. You know which are the plans, which are the documents which has to be prepared. To prepare them, it's not necessary that you have to do it all by yourself. Or rather, we say that even if you are an industry expert, you don't do it yourself. Because if you do it all by your own, you don't involve your team and you don't involve the experts, what will happen? You will not have the buy-in from the team. The team will probably not going to support you as much if you have a buy-in from the team where they've given you the commitment and now they are bound to honor it because they have told you that this work can be done in 5 days, 6 days, whatever time frame. They're bound to honor it now, right? Because you have negotiated with them, you have involved them in the planning stage. So that is why we say that expert judgment is always one of the common tool and technique. What are the other common inputs for any of the processes that we have? We discussed this earlier. One is the enterprise environmental factor, my enterprise factor, and the environmental factor. Environmental factor is anything which governs me to do a project from the environment perspective, and second is from the enterprise perspective. And what could be environmental perspective? It could be the taxation law of the land, uh, any law of the land. For example, if you're doing a pharmaceutical project, the same example which we took earlier, imagine the salt being banned, the salt which is a very important ingredient in your medicine, the work that you're doing, if it's banned in that land, you just cannot do the project in that location, right? That is your environmental factor. Enterprise factor would be any organization's policies and the procedures which impact your project from the cost perspective, from the scope perspective, from the time perspective, anything, right? So that becomes your enterprise environmental factor. This is again another input which you need to consider while preparing any of the document. Another one is the organization process asset. So we said that you would not be preparing the project documents all by your own. You would be preparing these documents using the previous documents of your organization for similar looking projects, right? So you would be modifying those documents which earlier were used. You would just be modifying it to suit your project need. That is called as, what are the previous documents which are available with you? What are those called as? Those are called as organization process assets, right? And the output which we're generating is, it's the same, that right, the process that we are doing. In this situation, we are preparing the plan scope management, so that becomes my output. Now, always remember, whenever we say we are planning, why are we planning? We are planning to safeguard our own interest and to get everybody on board with the same idea so that there is no communication gap. Why? What is it that we are safeguarding with? I planned in X manner, you approved it. Tomorrow don't ask me why I did not plan in Y manner, or why I did not follow another tool and technique right out of blue. There are tons and tons of tools and techniques which can be followed. Which is the tool and technique that you're going to follow in your project depends upon what you've mentioned in your plan document and what is approved by your project board. Remember, all your plan documents has to be signed by the project board before you execute them. So if they have signed it, now the document is ready, everything is crystal clear, that everybody knows that how you're going to do it and what you're going to do. Tomorrow, nobody is going to come back and say that, why have you not done this? If something goes wrong, people tend to put blame on you, right? People tend to say that, why have you not done this? Well, you can refer back and say that this is a document which we prepared, you signed it, and we followed the document. If there is a need, if we knew about these things that, following another tool and technique, we could have gathered more information, then of course, somebody in the project board would have pointed it out and we could have followed it. Nevertheless, this is a lesson learned and we will follow the same in the future projects. Now, the blame is not only coming onto you, it is it's shared by the project board. There's a huge difference in that, right? So that is why the plan document is prepared. Always remember, plan document is to find out what are we going to do and how are we going to do. Once it is approved, then you execute whatever was mentioned in your plan document. So we have prepared the plan document. In the plan document, we have prepared the requirements management plan, which is how we're going to solicitate all the requirements, how we're going to gather all the requirements which we have mentioned. So we're going to gather all the requirements. It could be whatever we have mentioned in the plan document. It could be by using brainstorming, or it could be by interviews, or it could be by you sending out the surveys. It could be by following any of the method that you have mentioned in your plan document. So collect the requirement, go ahead and collect the requirement. Now it's time for you to go ahead and collect the requirement. The example that we shared yesterday was, I want to make a car for myself, which is a customized car. So the BA, business analyst, comes to me and collects all my requirement, not just mine, the sponsor. He collects the requirement of all the stakeholders, which is my wife, my kids. He collects the requirement of all of them. Then he is going to do the analysis on each of the requirement. So he's going to find out what is it, what it's going to cost to develop each of the requirement, and then going to come back to the sponsor and say that, okay, these are the requirements that we have collected. How much, what do you want me to actually go and develop, right? To collect the requirement, we can collect the requirement using interviews. We can collect the requirement using focus group. I don't want to probably involve all, let's say in one of the category of the stakeholders, maybe impacted. We have too many people, right? I don't want to speak to everybody, and it's going to be a humongous task. I cannot speak to everybody. Then I need to create a focus group. I can facilitate a workshop, right? I can have the group creativity techniques like Delphi. What is Delphi? Now, this is one of the PMP question which often comes in the examination. What is Delphi? Always remember, Delphi is nothing but it's when you send out a survey to your stakeholders and when they are able to respond to it anonymously. Anonymously is the keyword. When they're able to respond to it anonymously, that becomes your Delphi technique. As a group, you can create, as a group, you can do the discussions, may come up with the decisions. You can send out the surveys or the questionnaire. What is the difference between surveys and questionnaire to the Delphi techniques? Surveys and questionnaire might not be anonymous. You might still be able to gather the name who has given you the details. Observations. Well, let's say one of my friends wants to set up a manufacturing plant of creating, one of the, any of the product. So setting up the factory is a project because this is one of, first time he's going to do it. And it's not that every day, day in, day out, we're going to be creating the factories. It's just one of task. Now, I can obviously go to another factory which has been producing the parts which this friend of mine wants to set up. I can go to another factory and observe what exactly is happening over there. So with that observation, I can come back and set up the factory, right? So that observation can help me collect the requirement. What would be the requirements? I can benchmark, compare apples to apples. This factory contains, the earlier existing factories contains these machineries. So these machineries should be included. Context diagram. What is the context diagram? I will just get into all that. And the document analysis. So I can look at the document analysis and can come up with the, with the scope. With the requirements. For example, I can look into my statement of work. I can look into my project charter. I can look into my contract. Contract says that you have to complete your work within 1 year. If you don't complete your work within 1 year, your work, you will have 10% penalty. Now, getting the work done within 1 year itself is one of the requirement, right? So that is one of the document analysis which can be done. Let's speak about each of these in a detailed manner. So we have interviews which can be formal or informal, which we can speak to the people. Then the group focus groups, I can have SMEs of various functions come into one group and I can brainstorm with that, not with everybody. Facilitated workshop, what's the difference between workshop and focus group? Well, workshop is with the key stakeholders and it gets, here we create something. Here we have, workshop is where everybody works together. It's not a brainstorming session. It's more of a working session. Group creativity techniques we have, when we talk about the group creativity techniques, we have the brainstorming, nominal group technique, idea mind mapping, affinity diagram, and multi-criteria decision analysis. Nominal group technique is when everybody is sitting together and, not everybody is sitting together. Brainstorming is when everybody is sitting together. Nominal group technique would be when not everybody is sitting together, but a larger group is present and we are brainstorming. Idea mind mapping is connecting of the ideas together. Affinity diagram is when, let's say I ask you, I tell you that you have, I give you sticky notes. Now you wrote down all of your ideas in the sticky notes and go and put it onto a wall. Then I again ask you that, okay, now you go back and don't talk to each other, but pull out the sticky note which you think is related to some other sticky note and combine those similar looking ideas, right? So with that, what will happen is there will be 3 or 4 boxes in which a lot of sticky notes will be there, and maybe some of the sticky notes are lying around separately, which is absolutely fine. So we are combining the ideas together. That means that we are looking at the ideas which has affinity to each other, right? Multi-criteria decision analysis. Now, when you go for an interview, when you go in for interviews, you are hiring people. You don't hire people just on their technical skill, right? You hire people based on their technical skills, their communication skills, their probably attitude, Are they good team players or not? So you take a decision based on the multiple criteria. That is nothing but the multi-criteria decision analysis. If you have to come up with a requirement over here or example for the requirement over here, similar requirement, when you're coming up, when you're creating a product, from the multiple criteria, what would be the requirements for it, right? For example, if you're creating a pen, it should be made of plastic, it should not be slippery, it should not be rubbery. So that becomes your multiple criteria to understand the requirement, right? Group decision making techniques. Give me a minute. Let me just finish my tea and then we will get started with this group decision making technique. Just a minute. All right. So what is group decision making technique? As a group, when we are arriving at a decision. Now, again, this is very important from the exam perspective. So if it is, if you have a pen and paper handy, just make a note somewhere. The definition of these might come, or it might be given out in exam. For example, they might give a situation and they say, this is an example of unanimity, majority, plurality, or dictatorship. Now, what is the meaning of these? Unanimity is when everybody inside the group, let's say we are we have six stakeholders, when everybody agrees. Give me a minute, somebody is at home. Just a minute. Yes, so what I was saying is when everybody, all six of the participants in the brainstorming session, when everybody agrees uh, to a to a requirement, only then that requirement would be accepted. Otherwise, it will not be accepted. For example, when I'm making a car, when I'm giving an order for my car, let's say me, my wife, my kids, all are sitting in a room. My kid says that it should be a it should be a sports car. Whereas in my mind, I wanted to customize a family car. I wanted to probably have an SUV or something which is big and SUV-ish and has a very good ground clearance to ensure that it goes for off-roading and all that. Now, if that requirement of my kids has to be taken up, everybody has to raise a hand. And in this situation, I'm not raising my hand. So that means we all don't agree to it unanimously. In that situation, that requirement would not be even accepted. Right, so this is the unanimity where everybody has to agree to it. Now, when out of six people, majority, right, majority is more than three people, when they raise the hand, the requirement is accepted. Always remember, accepting a requirement doesn't mean that that will be developed. That just means that this requirement will study further. We'll go and study further, and then we'll come back and find out if that should be included into scope or not. Right, so majority is when more than 50% of the people agree to it. Plurality is when the six stakeholders are there, but not six stakeholders have come up for the meeting. So when we send out the meeting invite, we send out to all six people, but not all six have come up. One of the person, he said that I'm busy, I won't be able to come. We go ahead with the meeting. Now, not all six have come. Five are there, right? When everybody has not arrived, but majority of them have arrived, in that meeting, when you're taking a decision with majority of the people, so let's say in this group out of six, only four have come, and now even if three people agree to something, then you take that as a requirement, right? So that's the difference between majority and plurality. Majority is when everybody is present in the room and more than 50% agree to it. Plurality is not when everybody is present in the room. Whosoever is present in the room, majority of them agree to a requirement. And dictatorship, well, a very important stakeholder, when he says
Hello?
Yeah. So uh, so till when since when this was on mute? I think I was on mute for some time. Hello.
Only for a minute, I guess.
Oh,
Only
okay,
for a
okay,
minute.
okay. So have you heard about what is dictatorship, plurality, majority, and unanimity? That is clear, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect, perfect. So now what we were saying is, which is the method which we will be following? The method which we will be following is, we have spoken about so many tools and techniques which can give us the requirements. Which is the tool and technique which we will follow? Whatever is mentioned in my plan document. My plan document my plan document says this is a tool and technique which we'll follow. Whatever is approved as per my plan document, only those tools and techniques we'll follow to collect the requirements, not everything. All right, so that probably is very clear about which tool and technique has to be followed. Now, using this tool and
Okay.
technique, these tools and techniques, we have collected all the requirements. Um, Next is the questions and surveys which we can send out, the observations, look at the task which has been done in your companies as well, the new hires which come up, they do on-job shadowing, they observe how the people are working in the company, and that's the observation. Okay. Shilpa, the dictatorship is when, let's say, you know, if the same example of the car, if nobody agrees, nobody says that, they say, no, MPV is fine. I want a family car. All my stakeholders are saying, we want a family car, or my kids are saying something else. But I say, I'm paying for it, right? You better make a SUV, right? I'm driving a point, I'm saying that this has to be done, no matter what. So I'm driving a point when nobody else agrees to it. I don't care if anybody else agrees to it or not. I'm spending the money. I want it my way or highway. That is dictatorship. When one stakeholder is influencing in such a way and saying that I don't care if others agree or not, this is what is going to be the requirement which has to be added, right? That is dictatorship. Prototype, when let's say you have to create a big, if you go ahead and buy a, even if you have invested in real estate in India, if you go ahead and buy a flat, they generally show a small model of the flats, how it's going to look like, where the parks are going to come up, where the amenities are going to come up, where the club is going to come up. That is a prototype. Create a working model. Benchmarking, compare apples to apples. Context diagram is visual representation of the business systems that covers a product scope. For example, let's say we have visual context diagram would be one of the example of the context diagram is fishbone analysis, right? Then we have the process flow charts. Document analysis is look at the various documents to come up with the requirements. Now, all these tools and techniques that we can follow for understanding what should be my requirement. Next is we need to document these requirements, and we need to document these requirements into the requirement traceability metric. So requirement traceability metric is nothing but what are the different requirements that we have, right? What are the different requirements that we have, and what is the product, what is the business need that this particular requirement is taking care of? Is it really all the requirements that we have is some requirement that is overly ambitious, but it is not taking care of any of the business need for which the project has been created? Or the requirements which has been listed out, are they taking care of some sort of business need which was identified earlier when the validation of the project itself happened, right? So all the requirements which is mentioned should ideally take care of one of the business needs. If it is not correlating to any of the business need, we need to go back to the stakeholder and say that I'm not able to understand this requirement is taking care of which business need, right? So that either that requirement is taken off, or we get to understand which business need this particular requirement is taken care of. So we collect and we document the requirements in the requirement traceability metric, and then we go ahead and define the scope. So here, this scope that we are going to talk about, the scope that we have is to understand the product in a wider perspective, understand what are the features that the project should be having, what are we developing, what are we actually going ahead and developing eventually. That is what we have in the scope. So to define the scope, we can look at the experts, we can speak to the experts, we can do the product analysis. For example, let's say one of the one of the client comes to me and says that they are Chinese client, right? So they are Chinese are generally very good in copying. They are very good in looking at the product which is very successful in the market, and they want to copy that product. They come to me and they say that iPhone is very successful in the market. I want to create a replica of iPhone, but want to make it as successful as iPhone. So iPhone, they want to create exactly a phone exactly looking like an iPhone, which runs on an Android, not an iOS, because iOS is patented, but performs equal to either equal or better than iOS, or either equal or better than iPhone, right? So that's what they have given me, and at the same point of time, it should cost less than iPhone. So now I know that what my product should look like. Analyzing the iPhone, I can come up with what should be the scope of the product. Alternative generation, alternative of what should the material, alternative of who should be the supplier. I can look at the different suppliers. Should I make it? Should I buy it from the market? Different alternatives I can explore to define my scope. And facilitated workshops. These become my tools and techniques to define the scope that we can come up with. What are these now? Product analysis, as I said, we can break down the product in and understand what the product, the components, the different components of the product is having, for example, system engineering, requirement analysis, value engineering, and so on. This will help me understand what the product should have for me to be able to deliver the product. Alternative generation, it could be create different options to identify different approaches to the project work. As we said earlier, different choice of different vendor, choice of different suppliers, choice of different locations, choice of different geography, all of that becomes my alternatives generation. Facilitated workshop is to gain a common understanding of the project expectations. Key stakeholders with different area of expertise will be participated in this intensive workshops, right? So using this, I will define my scope. Next is I need to go ahead and define my work breakdown structure out of it, right? I need to go ahead and define my work breakdown structure. Before I talk about the work breakdown structure, let me give you one link, one of the video link which I would want you to see about the work breakdown structure, and then it would make much more simpler for us to understand what work breakdown structure is all about. Give me just 1 minute. I'm going to forward you that link. I'm going to send you that link on the chat window as well as the email as well. Just a minute. Give me a minute. I have the video, but I'm just trying to search the link for it. Give me just a minute here. I'm going to put you on mute for 2 minutes. All right, so I've sent you email also, and I've pinged on GoToMeeting as well. Kindly go and watch this video. It's almost around 9.5 minutes. Let me know once you're done with the video. Praveen, you also done? I think the others are done. All right, all right. Okay, so that was about the WBS, work breakdown structure. That is dividing the work. See, initially when we have the work, whatever we have to develop, it is going to be at a very high level where we would not be able to understand what is the work that has to be done to accomplish this overall product or a service. Breaking it down into a manageable task, into manageable packages. I would not say task because task is further breakdown to a work package level is called as the work breakdown structure. Now the key word over here is you have to break it down only to a level of the work package. There is a rule here. What is the rule? The work package should not be more than, or rather it's called as the 880 rule. The work package should be designed in such a way that it is of 8 hours per day. It is not more than 8 hours per day, plus it should not exceed 80 hours. That is not, don't design a work package for more than 2 weeks. 80 hours is the rule. It should be 880 hours rule is what we have within which we have to prepare the work package, right? So in that, the work package has to be created. Now work package can be further divided to an activity level. What is that activity? For example, in the video that you have seen, it says that microwave was the last work package. Who's going to order the work pack? Who's going to order the microwave? Who's going to get the microwave? Transit of the microwave, installation of the microwave. All those are the tasks which has to be accomplished, right? To get that on place wherever it is supposed to be there. So those tasks, we have not divided the work package to the task level. The last level of the work package is, the last level of the work breakdown structure is the work package. This technique is called as the work breakdown structure, right? So this is called as the work breakdown structure and is also referred as the decomposition as is depicted in this slide. The first tool and technique which is spoken about over here is the decomposition, right? So this decomposition is dividing the work into the work package level, right? So that is what we have in the work package. So decomposition is a process of dividing and subdividing the project scope into work package level. Work package is the lowest level of the work that has to be completed from the work breakdown structure perspective, right? So this is how you define the work breakdown structure. Now we have to, next is what we have is we need to validate the scope. Now, validation of the scope is we have already built up what has to be developed. So we have prepared the work breakdown structure. Each of the work breakdown structure is prepared. Work breakdown structure dictionary is also prepared in which the details of the work breakdown structure for the each work package has been mentioned. Next is we are executing it now, right? So we have moved away from execution. During execution, we need to validate if we are developing what we were supposed to develop or we are deviating from it. So the purpose of this process is to get the formal acceptance of the completed deliverables from the customer. We need to ensure that we are getting the acceptance of whatever we are developing from the customer. So we need to validate and get the acceptance from the customer. How would we validate? So in the QC, I'm sure Shrisha would be well versed with it. So this is what she is also doing. What we do is we inspect, right? We are doing inspection. The inspection can be done by just by looking at it from the IT perspective. You prepare the test cases and then validate. Another one would be if it's a manufacturing environment. Let's say if you're manufacturing a car, you can inspect it by looking at it, right? Or you can do a test run to find out if it is bearing all the test conditions or not. Or as a group also, you would be able to find out if it is meeting the criteria or not. So as a group also, you can come up with a decision if it is meeting the criteria or not. The group decision-making techniques, it remains the same over here as we had in the requirements. It is unanimity, majority, plurality, dictatorship. What are these techniques? Once again, unanimity, everybody has to agree to it. Majority, more than 50% has to agree to it. Plurality, when not everybody has arrived, but whosoever has arrived in the room, majority of the people who have arrived in the room agrees to it. And dictatorship is when one of the senior QA says that this is fine, this particular product which I was mentioned is meeting my quality standard, it's absolutely fine, that becomes my dictatorship. right? So with that also it can be done. Now from validation of the scope, it can be looked at from this perspective as well. You go to one of the client and client has assigned only one person to validate. When he says it meets, it meets. If when he says it doesn't meet, it doesn't meet. Now those kind of ambiguous situations often come when we have not defined a clearly measurable acceptance criteria. It is left up to a person to decide, right? Which is not a very good strategy to be in place. We need to ensure that we have an acceptance criteria clearly defined. Now, if we are deviating, what has to be done? We need to ensure that we control the scope. So control the scope is a process where the status of the project and product scope will be monitored on a regular basis, where the changes to the scope baseline are being made. The changes to the scope are monitored, tracked, and managed, right? So that becomes my control scope. To monitor if we are on track or not, what do? We do the variance analysis, right? How much are we varying? Are we on track? Are we varying too much to what we were supposed to develop, or we are not varying? So that becomes a variance analysis. So what is variance analysis? Let's spend a few minutes on the variance analysis. It is a technique that we have to compare the baseline with the actual project performance. It determines the cause and degree of the difference between both, and it helps and make a decision whether preventive or corrective action is supposed to be taken or not, right? So that is my variance analysis. That completes us with the scope management chapter. So this is all that we had from the scope management chapter. Now let's go. Let's go ahead and next chapter is a project time management chapter, which we are going to start up. So before we get started with the project time management, let's take that 30 minutes break that we have for today, and then let's get back after 30 minutes, and then we will get started with the project time management. Today we would not be completing the time management chapter. We would be getting started with the time management, and completion of the time management would be done by tomorrow, right? So right today we are just going to get started. We will build some foundation of the time management, and this is where we will be spending a lot of time on. Time management is a big topic. Time management and cost management are very similar. The tools and techniques that we have for time management are very similar to the tools and techniques that we have for the cost management. It's not too different. It's very similar. So we would be spending a lot of time on the time management, and the cost management probably is going to be the revision of the time management. Let's take a 30 minutes break, and let's get back after 30 minutes. All right? Okay. All right. All right, welcome back, everyone.
Okay.
Yeah, let's get started. Others also kindly confirm, are you back from the break?
Yeah, Bhupendra.
Yeah. All right, so let's get started about the time management. So the time management, now as we said earlier, remember we said that about the CTS and the TCS, these are the iron triangle. Iron triangle is also referred as the project triple constraints. Why do we call it as a triple constraint? Any one dimension you change, the other two dimensions of the triangle has to change. Otherwise, it will be imbalanced triangle. And the quality, which is in between this triangle, and the risk, which is inverted triangle within this triangle, will get squeezed, which we don't want, right? Uh, one parameter changes, other two parameter also changes. Now, the time management, a lot of questions do come from the time management and the cost management. Uh, the tools and techniques, the way we plan for the time management is very, very similar, or rather the same, the way we plan for the cost management as well.
iPad కింద పడింది.
In the time management, we're going to speak about, so the project is always viable, or project makes a lot of sense if we do it within a specified time period and cost. That is why it is very, very important that we always manage the time of the project. We need to ensure that the project doesn't exceed my time limit. It doesn't exceed beyond the agreed time limits, which we have decided, right? It should stay within those limits. That's about the time management. Let's get started with the time management topic, and let's discuss what we have in the time management. In time management, we have 7 processes that we have in time management. First, we will plan for the schedule management or the time management. What is plan? Plan is what are the tools and techniques which I will use? What will I do it? How will I do it? What are the tools and techniques which I will use? How will I ensure that I gather the information about what is the optimal time my project is going to take? How would I manage my time in a sense that if there is any deviation, how would I ensure that what are the thresholds after which I need to report it back to the project board? If there is any change, what would be the change management procedure? How would I involve the change inside my project, right? So change management procedure is very simple. If there is a change desired, either by you, your team members, or your client, or your project board, any of the stakeholders, if there is a change desired, change is logged. Change is logged into a, wherever, whatever procedure that you have defined. If it's a portal or whatever procedure that you have defined, the change has to be logged using that procedure. Then change is evaluated by you about the impact of the change on terms of time, cost, and risk. So we evaluate the impact of the change. Now, evaluation is done by the project manager along with the help of the expert. After the evaluation, project manager, depending upon the plan document, so let's say in the plan document it says that the change, if change is less than, now who sits in the project board? Senior directors, sponsor, all the people whose time is scarce. They don't have too much of time. So I don't want them to be bothered with too much of change requests, right? But changes will be huge. There will be a lot of changes in the project. Now, in my plan document, if it is mentioned and approved, saying that if the change impact is less than $5,000, project manager has the right to approve it. Project manager can go ahead and directly approve or reject it. He can take a decision. If that's been mentioned in the plan document, project manager can take a decision. If it is greater than now I'm not saying 5,000 is the threshold value. It depends upon you, your project board. It depends upon the comfort zone that they have. It could be just $1,000. It could be $1. It could be $0. It could be 10,000. It could be $100,000. It depends. Now, after the threshold, any change which is evaluated by the project manager goes to the project board. So project board can either approve it, can reject it, or they can defer it for future. They might just say that, okay, we'll take a decision on it later. Now, whatever is done, it needs to be recorded into the change log. If it is approved, it needs to be built into the plan documents and needs to be executed, and then change is evaluated to find if it's successful. If not, again, change has to be raised for whatever changes has to be made. If it was rejected or if it was deferred, it has to be mentioned in the change log, right? So that's the change management process. All this information, the thresholds, the unit of measure, the tools and techniques, all this is mentioned in my plan document, right? Even the power of project manager. What is the power of project manager? If the change is of less than 2 days, 5 days, project manager has a right to approve it, right? So all those things are mentioned in my plan document. After I've planned it, I need to define the activities. How do I define the activities? I can go down one level below the WBS, the work breakdown structure. So in the work breakdown structure, if I go one level below, then I should be able to define my activities. For example, let's say this is work that has to be done, and these are the work packages that we have. Um, this entire work that has to be done. And this is package 1, this is 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? So I can define all the activities for work package 1, similarly for 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then I can sequence those activities, or what I can do is I can first define the activities only for work package 1. Plan for the work package which you're going to do now, plan for it in detail, and you have already done the high-level planning of the other work packages, so don't plan it at the moment. When we reach over there, we will plan for them. This is called as rolling wave planning. How would you do it? It depends upon what you've mentioned in the plan document, right? If it is detailed, then you would do it right away now. If it was not detailed, then you would not do it right away completely now. You would do it at a later stage, right? So define activities, you would go ahead and define the activities depending upon whatever was mentioned in your plan document. Then you need to sequence those activities. Sequencing the activity would mean which activity has to be done first. Let's say activity A has to be done first. After only doing activity A, B and C can be started together. I'm not saying they will be started together. I'm saying that's a dependency. B and C can only be started after activity A is done. There's no dependency on activity B and C. Only after activity B is done, activity D can be done. And only after activity C is done, activity E can be done. Only after activity D and E are done, I can do my last activity, which is the activity F, right? So let's say this is my entire project, a very small example of the project. So this is how I'm sequencing the activities. Sequencing the activities still is not giving me the time frame, how much time it's going to take. So I'm going to estimate the resources. Now for same activity, I can do the activity depending upon, let's say if I have 2 people, I can do the activity let's say with 2 people, if I'm doing the activity in 1 week, I can do the same work in 2.5 days, provided I have 4 people. Double the resources, I would be able to do it faster. So both of them is done together, and how would you estimate the resources? It depends upon how much of budget also you have, right? So all of these, that's why go hand in hand. Estimate the activity resources and then estimate the activity duration. Let's say this is the activity duration for this activity is 5. Then the activity duration for the next activity B is 5 days. Activity duration for the activity D is 5 days, and for F is another 5 days. There is another chain here. This was one chain, A, B, D, F. Another chain is A, C, E, F. For activity C, let's say you're going to do this activity in 3 days, and activity E you're going to be doing in another 3 days. Always remember the duration of your project is the longest chain, right? The total duration of the project is decided as by the longest chain. So what is the longest chain over here? A, B, D, and F, which is 20 days, right? So total duration of my project is 20 days. I can do my project in 20 days. It's very simple as well. If you do this way, if you go this way, 5, 3, 8, and then you have 11 days, you cannot do activity F till the time you have also done activity D, which will only be done after 15th day. Even if you have completed this activity E on the 11th day, remaining 4 days, you have to wait for activity D also to be finished to start activity F. So what is the overall duration of your project? A, B, D, F. Now activity C and E can be done in parallel, and if you are saying 20 days, then you have to do in parallel, right? Play around with the time, and that's how you will be able to finish. Now this longest chain that we have is also called as the critical path. What is critical path? Critical path is the path on which you cannot miss the timeline even by a single day. If you miss the timeline, your project will be delayed, right? Imagine in this one, if instead of 3 days, you're able to do the activity in 5 days. 5 plus 3 is 8. Here 5 plus 5 is 10. You're still going to be able to complete the activity E before activity D is completed. Here you can delay the activities. C and E can be delayed, but you cannot delay activity B or D. Even if you delay the activity by 1 day, let's say instead of 5, if activity B takes 6 days, my project duration instead of 20 will become 21, which is not correct, right? My project is getting delayed. So that is the concept of critical path. So I have defined the duration, and then I have developed the entire schedule using the critical path. As you see, let me again go ahead and draw it over here. Let's say activity A has to be done first, activity B is done later, activity C is done after activity B, A is done, activity B and C can be started together, and then activity D can be done only after activity B is done, activity E can be done only after C is done, only after D and E are done, I can do activity F. Now, activity A is taking 5 days, activity B is taking 5 days, D is taking 5 days, and F is taking another 5 days. E is taking 3 days, C and E is taking 3 days each, right? So that means you can, your longest chain is A, B, D, F, right? Now, in this A, B, D, F, you cannot delay your activity. Imagine if for some reason, because let's say there was unknown risk, for known risk you have already planned, right? For unknown risk, activity B gets delayed by 2 days. It gets delayed by 2 days. Logic says it's okay, even if it gets delayed by 2 days, I can complete my activity D little early or activity F little early, and I should still be able to meet the timeline of 20 days. What do you think? Does that happen? Praveen, Shrisha, anyone? What do you think? Is that logic valid? What do you think? Is that fine? Inputs, guys? Yeah.
Yeah, I think yes, that can be accommodated.
Right. And Shrisha, what do you think? So the question is, if somehow activity B gets delayed by 2 days, logic says activity D or F, I can do it a little faster to be able to complete my project in still 20 days. In real life situation, does that happen? Shrisha or Shilpa, anyone? Not able to hear?
Actually, I didn't get the concept.
All right. So what I'm saying is, okay, let me know if you, where is the confusion? Tell me where is the confusion and then I will clarify it.
So activity B is delaying by 2 days, right?
Yeah.
So the question is, what's the question exactly?
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, let's say activity A is 5 days, B is 5 days, D is 5 days, and F is 5 days. 5 plus
Okay.
5 plus 5 plus 5 is 20 days overall my project length is. For
Yeah.
some reason, activity B gets delayed by 2 days. So instead of 5 days, activity B gets completed by 7 days. Okay. Now, logically, if one of my activity gets delayed by 2 days, I should be able to complete any of the subsequent activities slightly early, right? Activity D or activity F, I can do slightly early to still meet my timeline, right? Logically, if one activity gets delayed, the other activities can be done
Yes.
faster, and the average still should be able to, on an average, I still should be able to meet the timeline, right? So what do you think? Is that fine? Does that happen in the real life?
When you do parallelly, maybe we can do, but not sequentially. That's my experience. Or,
Yes.
or if you put more resources, again there are a lot of constraints, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, what happens is this is so there was a professor Goldberg. He spoke about this thing. Now, critical path was defined in project management. So earlier, all the projects used to follow this critical path. Now, still, almost 80% of the projects used to come late. Almost 80% of the projects used to be delayed. Why? Imagine yourself, right? When we were in college, when we were doing our studies, at that point of time, when did we start studying? The first day of the college, or towards the end when the exams were approaching? Pretty much towards the end of when the exams are approaching, right? That's called a student syndrome. Even in our office, the same thing is applicable. If I have communicated to my boss that I'm going to be able to do this activity in 5 days, even though I know this activity can be done in one day, in the back of my mind, I know that it can be done in one day. When do I start working? The last day, right? I don't really start working on the first day itself when I know the work can be done slightly faster and have higher, more time available with me. This is called as the Parkinson's law. Work tends to fit into the available time that we have. Third is, what if, let's say Praveen is able to do the work faster. Now his colleagues will say, because you were able to do the work faster, next time we are going to get lesser work. We are going to get more work or lesser time period. So they are going to blame Praveen, which means due to peer pressure, Praveen will also not do the work faster. Now, all these are the challenges, the human challenges, right? Because of which, if one activity gets delayed, the other activities you won't be able to do faster. Overall, there the project will get delayed. Now, because of all that, this is called as the constraints. Looking into the constraints, there has to be some sort of buffer built over here at the end, which is called as a project buffer. There has to be some sort of resource buffer built up. There has to be some sort of project buffer built up. There has to be some sort of feeding buffer built up. Including all those buffers, if you create a chain, that is called as a critical chain. Instead of critical path, that will be referred as critical chain, right? To meet the timeline. So instead of communicating 20 to my project board, I would look into the buffer, which is calculated using the known risk, and I would go and communicate to my project board that my project timeline is not 20 days, it is 25 days, right? So that I know I have built buffer for the risks which can delay my project, right? So this is how we take care of the timeline and ensure that we meet the timeline, and we make the timeline, we predict the timeline on a realistic basis. Okay, now on that concept, let me give you, what's the time here? Give me a second. Yeah, let me give you two videos to watch, and that videos is about critical path and critical chain, these two concepts which we have just spoken about now. And then we will have a discussion further from then we tomorrow we'll start with the further discussion about all these topics. Today I think we can close it over here, and I will give you the two video links. Now it's going to take around 15-20 minutes for you to watch those videos, and then we can meet tomorrow after that. So just give me 2 minutes. Let me search for those videos and give you the link. Give me just a minute here.
Can you send email also that links? Hello?
Yes, I have sent the email as well, along with sending out on the chat window. I have sent the email as well. And Praveen, yes, I'm going to share the recorded session as well. Yeah. So watch these videos in the same link or the same rather sequence that I've shared. The first link first, which is the critical chain, and then watch the critical path. Okay.